Hey guitar friends, this is Prokopis from String Systems, and in today's lesson we'll talk about a fun and effective system for learning the fretboard. When we try to directly memorize information, the process gets very boring and it doesn't really work. Those of you who pushed yourself to remember the notes on the guitar fretboard probably noticed that you couldn't really use what you learned in actual music. That's why I'm going to show you a better way. And if you want to get some fun practice tracks to help you with this, use the link below to get my free mini course called Fretboard Memorization Toolbox. So let's get started. The guitar is one of the few instruments where knowing the actual notes you're playing is not a big priority, at least not for most people in the beginning. If you look at the piano, for example, you see that even little children that have been playing for just a few weeks, they know all the notes. They can name any key on the keyboard. But take the average adult guitar player, point at a random note on the fretboard, and chances are that he or she will not immediately know the name of that note. That's not because we guitar players are dumb or musically illiterate. No, it's because it's more practical to play using shapes. When you learn a simple C major chord in the open position, for example, it's much easier to just learn the fingering shape and place it on the fretboard instead of thinking that you are playing C, E, G, C, E. And even if you're an intellectual player who actually knows the keyboard very well and you want to play, for example, an E flat major 7 voicing, you will most probably place it using a shape and maybe the root note instead of thinking E flat, B flat, D, G. Even if you do know these notes, you'll probably think of the shape instead. The same goes for playing scales. You don't need to think of the name of every note you play. It's not very practical on the guitar. But as you progress and as your playing starts to become more advanced, then knowing the notes on the fretboard becomes increasingly important. Those of you that studied SFS with me have seen how knowing the root notes, for example, helps you to jump around freely everywhere on the fretboard or switch between different keys smoothly. These are just two examples where this is useful, but the deeper you go with your guitar journey, the more you'll see how learning the fretboard really well and locating notes really fast can help open up more musical options. The location of each note on the guitar fretboard is not as obvious as on the piano keyboard or as a saxophone and so on, but that doesn't mean we can't learn them. We just need a step-by-step system to do it. So here's step 1. In the beginning, we will work with just 4 notes, A, B, C, and D. 4 is a good number for this kind of practice. It's a good number for pieces of information that the human mind can handle without becoming overwhelmed. So we'll start with A, B, C, and D and learn them on one string at a time. That's why I call this step A, B, C, D horizontal. We will move horizontally on the fretboard on one string at a time, and we'll do it in 2 parts. The first part is the A, B, C, D horizontal drill. Let's see how that works. I'll show it to you using string 4, which is a string that many people get confused on. But you should do this on every string. When you start the drill, you'll have a few seconds to look at the diagram and locate A, B, C, and D. Then you'll start practicing. There are 2 versions for each drill, a slower and a faster one, so that you can practice at 2 different speeds. This is a fun way to do this because you will be practicing over a backing track, which makes the whole process very musical. A, C, B, D, B. So you do this until you feel you can find these 4 notes quickly without having to think about it too much. When you can do it on all 6 strings without mistakes, then you can go to the second part of step 1, which is again A, B, C, D, but this time it's A, B, C, D horizontal improvisation. In this part, we basically take a backing track and improvise using these 4 notes on a single string. I have included 7 different backing tracks in different styles for you to improvise over. Granted, there's not much that you can do with just 4 notes, but the process of trying to solo creatively with such limitations is actually very beneficial for the development of your musicality. So go ahead and try it. Here's an example again on string 4, but you should do this on all strings. In step 2, we'll be working with the same 4 notes again, but this time we'll do it vertically instead of on a single string. Take a look at this diagram. I have split the natural notes of the fretboard into 5 vertical areas. We work on one of these at a time, and we will limit ourselves to A, B, C, D for now. So what you do is go through each vertical area and practice exactly like we did in step 1. A, C, D, B. Once again, after you can do this drill in all areas without mistakes, you can move on to improvisation and make some music with these 4 notes. Improvisation using a vertical area can feel very strange, and it can even be harder to produce nice melodies. But again, it's excellent practice, so give it a shot. Our goal is to learn the notes, so we don't really need to worry too much about the quality of our solo. In this third step, we are basically repeating what we did in step 1, but using all 7 natural notes on a single string. So first you do the call and response drill, and then in part 2 you improvise. In the improvisation part, even though you're still limited to a single string, now that you have all 7 notes available, you can get a little more creative. Here's an example of that. Step 4, we go back to practicing vertically, but this time with all 7 natural notes. We start with the ABCDEFG vertical drill, and then again improvisation. The improvisation part is still going to be tricky to make nice melodies, even though you have all 7 notes, because of the vertical layout. Hopefully this will force you to come out of your comfort zone in order to produce something musical. Here's an example of that improvisation part again. This step is a lot of fun. We're going to get out of the traditional guitar mentality of using fretboard shapes and just improvise freely just by stepping on the 7 natural notes that we have practiced. And we'll do that anywhere that we can see them. Move horizontally on purpose, jump around, go crazy without thinking about scale shapes. This way of improvising, thinking about the notes, works great on piano and other instruments. It's actually the main way those musicians locate notes. On the guitar, it's not very practical by itself, especially if you get into keys with a lot of sharps and flats. But it is an extra layer of knowledge that works great in combination with a good visual system, like SFS for example. So here's a musical example where I don't think of scale shapes on purpose, even though I know them well. I will just locate the 7 natural notes wherever I can find them and play free. In step 6, we add sharps and flats. These are the notes between the 7 natural notes. Sharps are 1 fret up and flats are 1 fret down. So for an A sharp, you play here, and for an A flat, you play here. We'll use a special type of backing track that cycles through all keys. These key cycle backing tracks are great for practicing chords or switching scales, but for our purposes here, you just need to play the root note of each chord in the track. Here's an example on string 4 again. In In step 7, we do the same, but instead of playing horizontally on a single string, we do it using vertical areas. By the time you get into this step, you'll have a good foundation of natural notes, so it's going to be easy to add sharps and flats around them. Here's an example. So with these 7 steps, you will reach a whole new level of fretboard knowledge. Some of you will only need one round of each step to get to your goal, so it can take just a few days. But for most of you, you will need to go through the whole plan a few times. It all depends on your current level. Hey friends, this lesson is part of my free mini course called Fretboard Memorization Toolbox. If you're looking for an enjoyable and quick way to learn the fretboard, I encourage you to get it by using the link below and start learning now. It's totally free and it includes the complete lesson series plus all the necessary backing tracks and musical drills. This is Prokopis from String Systems reminding you to enjoy your practice and be effective.